Let's see if you can solve this problem before I do. How would you convert the starting material into the product in just 1 or 2 steps? Because problems like this show up on almost every organic chemistry exam. And if you can learn to recognize the reaction from the transformation, then these type of problems become much easier. The first thing that I would do is add a strong oxidizing agent like potassium dichromate, which is K2Cr2O7, in the presence of sulfuric acid. And that is going to allow us to do a transformation of a functional group. Specifically, it's going to turn this alcohol into a carboxylic acid. And this means that this is a function of a multi-step synthesis, where we're turning one functional group into another before we finally turn it into the final product. So then specifically, this is an example of a functional group transformation to turn an alcohol into a carboxylic acid. And notice we have retained the same number of carbons from the reactant to the product. But we're not done yet, because remember, our final product contains an ester at this position. And one of the most effective strategies for turning carboxylic acids into esters is known as Fischer esterification, where you can take an acid, which I'll just write as H+, and introduce an alcohol, like methanol for example, and this will allow us to transform the carboxylic acid into an ester. Let's try another example and see if you can turn this alcohol into this carboxylic acid. If you want to try this problem independently, then you should pause the video now and give it a shot. But if you want to ace organic chemistry, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Now we can actually achieve this synthesis in 2 different ways. When looking at the reactant and the product, I see 2 important features. Number 1, we're transforming an alcohol into a carboxylic acid. And the second thing is that we're actually adding 1 carbon throughout this transformation, because our starting material contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons, and our product contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the way that I would achieve this is first by turning this alcohol into a alkyl bromide, and we can achieve that either using phosphorus tribromide or hydrobromic acid, and that will allow us to create a brand new bromine where we currently have that alcohol. So now our starting material will have been transformed into this alkyl bromide. And I actually know 2 different pathways with which we can turn this alkyl bromide into this carboxylic acid and add 1 carbon to it. One of those methods is going to be to turn this first into a Grignard reagent, where you add magnesium turnings in the solvent diethyl ether and then add it to CO2 in the presence of acid, like H3O+, for example, and this will actually extend our carbon chain by 1, which comes from the carbon dioxide, and also transform it into a carboxylic acid. But because I have a mastery of all the chemical reactions that you learn about in organic chemistry class, I also know that we can achieve this synthesis in a different pathway. And that is first by using sodium cyanide, or NaCN, to extend our carbon chain and turn this alkyl bromide into a nitrile. And then once I have the nitrile, all I need to do is add H3O+ and heat, which I'll write as delta, and this will turn that nitrile into a carboxylic acid. And our carbon chain would have been extended because this nitrile contains an extra carbon. Now it's likely you've never seen either of those starting material and products before, which means we can't just memorize exactly specific reactions, but we can recognize the patterns. Because if you see the functional group change, that immediately narrows down the possible reactions. And that's the real skill that organic chemistry is testing. For each of these problems, how would you convert the reactant to the product in just 1 single step? In each of these examples, we can go from the starting materials to the products in just 1 single step. In our first example, I know that we're turning an aldehyde into an alkene, and we're also extending our carbon chain, and we're also replacing a carbonyl group. The only way I know to do this is to use a Wittig reagent, which is going to be a phosphorus ylide, typically triphenylphosphine, with a carbon to phosphorus double bond that also contains our other methyl group on it as well. And this is what's known as a Wittig reagent. And our Wittig reaction can be used to transform a carbonyl group into an alkene. If you've never seen this reaction before, I have a video that you can check out all about the Wittig reaction. In our next example, we're turning this 1,3-butadiene into this product that contains a 6-membered ring, 2 pi bonds, and also contains 2 ketones. In a single step, the way that I know to do this is through what's known as a Diels-Alder reaction, where if we start with an alkyne that contains a ketone coming off of each side of our alkyne, then we can do that cycloaddition reaction in order to get this final product. Remember, the mechanism is a one-step concerted mechanism in Diels-Alder reactions in which the electron flow happens simultaneously. And this is how we turn this 1,3-butadiene into this product in just a single step. And this is why many students use flashcards when they study organic chemistry. Not just to memorize all the different reactions, but to train their brain to recognize patterns and transformations. And that's why I always recommend that you make your own, but I also have a set that you can check out down below in the description. For these next two problems, each of them take exactly 3 steps to go from the reactant to the product. Can you figure out what conditions we need to make these transformations possible? Ultimately, we're trying to turn this carboxylic acid into a cyanohydrin, and we can achieve that in exactly 3 steps. The first of which will be to reduce this carboxylic acid using lithium aluminum hydride, which is LiAlH4, and also using an acid will allow us to turn that carboxylic acid into a primary alcohol. So from here, we will contain a primary alcohol. Next, I can turn a primary alcohol into an aldehyde if I use oxidative conditions. And the most common example of which is probably going to be to use PCC, which is pyridinium chlorochromate, in the presence of a solvent known as DCM or dichloromethane, and that will allow us to oxidize the alcohol into an aldehyde. You can also do this with Swern or Collins oxidation as well. And in our last step, to form the cyanohydrin, we just need to introduce HCN, which will allow us to transform the aldehyde into the cyanohydrin by first protonating the carbonyl oxygen and then having a nucleophilic attack where the cyano group will come and attack the carbonyl carbon, kicking up the pi electrons and giving us this product. The next one is a little bit tricky because it seems straightforward. Remember that Grignard reagents can be used to do a double addition to esters. Here's what that mechanism looks like, where first the Grignard reagent attacks the ester, this transforms it into a ketone, and then you get another nucleophilic attack from your Grignard reagent to transform the ketone into an alcohol. And that would be a sufficient pathway to turn this ester into this alcohol. However, notice that we also have a ketone remaining in both our starting material and our product. And remember, a part of that pathway I just showed you is that Grignard reagents definitely add to ketones. And since we don't have that addition in our product, that means that we first need to protect our carbonyl group. And therefore, the first step is going to be that protection where you use an acid, which I'll just write as H+, and then we can use a diol to make what's known as a cyclic acetal. This is how you can protect ketones, which will allow us to place this cyclic acetal where we formerly had that ketone. Our ester remains unchanged, and now we are set up to do that double addition. And from here, we can add our Grignard reagent, 2 equivalents of it, to transform this ester into this alcohol, and we'll still be left with that cyclic acetal. So by adding 2 equivalents of our magnesium bromide species, which is going to be our Grignard reagent, if it is attached to a methyl group like CH3, this will do a double addition at that position. And that means that the product of that transformation will still contain that cyclic acetal, and we will have also added our 2 methyl groups at that carbonyl carbon position of our ester, and we'll be left with this alcohol as well as those 2 methyl groups. And then the last step is just to remove that cyclic acetal, and just like we used an acid to put it on, we use an acid to get rid of it. And that's all the conditions necessary to transform that cyclic acetal back into a ketone and give us our final product. Let's try 4 more problems. Let's see if you can figure out how to transform each of these starting materials into the desired product. Remember to look out for those key functional group transformations. For the first example, we're turning a carboxylic acid into a ketone, and we can achieve this in just 2 steps. The first will be to transform the carboxylic acid into what's known as an acid chloride, and we can achieve this using thionyl chloride. This will allow us to transform that functional group from a carboxylic acid into what's known as an acid chloride. And this acid chloride is key because it allows us to do our next transformation, which is generate the ketone. And for that, we need an organometallic reagent known as a Gilman reagent. And this is going to be where we have our benzene ring attached to carbon, and typically it's 2 of those R groups, attached to a copper lithium group. And this is what's known as a Gilman reagent. And I have a whole video here that you can check out specifically about these types of organometallic reactions. But this is how you turn acid chlorides into ketones by adding on that R group, which in our case is that benzene ring. For the second problem, we're turning a ketone into an epoxide and also extending our carbon chain. The first step is actually going to be using that triphenylphosphine ylide, which contains an ethyl group coming off of it. And this is what's known as a Wittig reagent, and it allows us to basically cleave between here and do an exchange. This is known as the Wittig reaction, and that's how we attach an alkene where we formerly had that carbon to oxygen double bond. And this is how we put on that ethyl group and transform this carbonyl group into an alkene. And then the common pathway to make epoxides in organic chemistry is to use a compound known as M, which stands for meta, chlorobenzyperoxy acid, and this is known as MCBPA, and it's how we attach an epoxide to what used to be an alkene. This transformation looks much harder than it really is. In our reaction, we need to make sure that our benzene ring remains the same in the reactant and the product. Also, what you should notice is that we have an alkene that's eventually turned into an amine. And what's more is this 6-membered ring here actually turns into a 7-membered ring in our product. And the way that we can achieve this is first by doing ozonolysis, which typically is using O3 to actually split or break open this carbon-carbon double bond. And what it's going to leave behind, since there are hydrogens at each of these carbon positions, is actually going to be 2 new aldehydes. So that means that our benzene ring will remain untouched, so it will remain the exact same. And notice that we had 1 carbon coming off of that benzene ring, which means we'll have 1 aldehyde that looks like this. And then on this side, we had 1, 2, 3 carbons, which means that we'll have 1, 2, 3 carbons as a part of our next aldehyde. And this is the product of that ozonolysis reaction. And from here, all we need to do is one step to get to this final product. Typically, at pHs around 5, we can achieve the correct conditions in order to do what's known as reductive amination. And for that, we just need methylamine, where we'll take our methylamine, which is methyl group attached to nitrogen and 2 hydrogens, and also add a reductant. And this one is commonly used as sodium cyanoborohydride, which is NaBH3CN. And these conditions allow us to do what's known as reductive amination to end up synthesizing this tertiary amine. If you've never seen reductive amination before, I have a video here that you can check out all about how to synthesize amines. In this reaction, we're turning this benzene ring that contains a cyano group or a nitrile coming off it into a benzene ring that contains an ester. We've seen the reactions that are necessary to complete this transformation just in this video. In the first step, we first need to turn our nitrile into a carboxylic acid. There are a few ways to do this. You can use basic conditions, or you can also use something like H3O+ and heat in order to turn that nitrile group into a carboxylic acid. So now we'll have our carboxylic acid, and then we're only one step away to this ester. And the most common way to do this is what's known as Fischer esterification. Here is the mechanism in case you've never seen Fischer esterification before. But in this reaction, we're using an acid, which I'll just write as H+, and then we'll introduce an alcohol, like methanol for example, in order to complete this transformation and turn our carboxylic acid into that ester. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up down below, and make sure you drop a comment down below to let me know if you want to see more videos just like this. And it would mean the world to me if you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.